Okay, so today I wanted to talk about Dragonbond, Lords of Valor, which is on Kickstarter at the moment. It's not got much time left, but it's something to really take a look of because of a few different reasons. Now, it's one of the most popular at the moment on Kickstarter at this current time, but it's effectively, as it says, it's a strategic or strategy asymmetric board game with a free expansion, which is just boosting up as we speak. Raid as a dragon or a general raising armies, and then it's the concepts are from Magic the Gathering and D&D artists. So we're talking about dragons here, which is so cool anyway, as well as some general, so some asymmetric playing, which is really quite cool. Now, one reason why you really need to make note of this is its value. I've not seen anything of the same value on Kickstarter, to be honest, as before. So this is the latest one that they're trying to unlock in terms of a stretch goal, where you're getting these armies of blood and dreams. Basically, these are units that you put on the board as a general, and instead of little cardboard pieces, you can now replace those with miniatures. The miniatures look really nice, by the way, and I'll show you those in a bit. $49 for the base game. Now, I'll talk about the game in a minute and a few other things as well. But effectively, there's two dragons and two generals in the base game. You always play with those four characters. Okay, so you always play with four characters. If there's less players, you play with an AI system that they've got in the game. Okay, so that's why it's a 1 to 4 players. You can bring up to 6 players with an expansion, which they're doing as well for $30, which again is really good. But you get this for free. This Armies of Blood and Dreams, which as well as any other unlocked stretch goals, of course. They also give every backer the STL files, so you can print and play and do some 3D printing, which is quite cool. But effectively, these are your 4 different playing characters, as it were. And as it says, all play collaboratively with signature Dragonbond mechanic. Now, this always plays, the Dragonbond always plays in the game. I think this could be a contention for people not enjoying this part of the game, where it's not a lot of the time a choice whether you Dragonbond and then you either win or lose together. It's actually a dice mechanic thing, so it happens more than you think. I really quite like it, but I think that's a personal choice. AI mode for a single player experience, not just this. Please note, this is not just for a single player. If you're playing 2 player, you will play with 2 AI, with the 2 characters that are left along. You've also got some creatures of Valernia. Excuse me. And the thing with this, it says 5th edition here, is because, and I will talk about the world of Valar and Dragonbond, because they're doing RPGs, they're doing a animation, they're doing all this stuff, and I'll show you that in a minute, which is really cool. So this board game is just one little part of a bigger picture. So the things that you get in this can be used in their RPG, which I'll talk about in a second, which is another reason why you should really be paying attention for this campaign. Get some cool promo cards for kickstarting, which is great. And then this came up, Alaria, Treveria, and stuff like that. Download the word primer. So I had a little look. Now, this is really, really important because this is the world that it's set in. And there's very few games that aren't... I'm not talking about all board games because obviously you've got, Gloomhaven, Ether Fields and all these, which have got whole worlds built around them. And that's their part of their play style. This is a game which has got some mechanics in there utilized in the world of Dragonbond. So I started reading through this, and oh man, it's so cool. So this is Dragonbond, and the best way to I kind of think of it is a little bit like Avatar, the film, where you make a link with a creature, in this case a dragon, and then you share that link forever. Okay, no gods. But there is no good, no evil, but it's a fancy world for gaming and storytelling, high adventure, mighty magic, and dark forces. So I know it says evil, but you know, what is evil, I suppose. So they've created this whole world. So these are the different. It's Rava, which is the world of Rava, is a magic pack setting filled with monsters, strange landscapes, and great powers. Is a primal world, a world of struggling nations and epic heroes and magic of war. So quite a classic trope in terms of what's happening, but just with this inclusion of all these dragons, and very different dragons as well, some fantastic design concepts. So Vala is the magic, is the life force for change, motion, and progress. And there's three aspects to it. There's the Fae, which is the dream, the Carb, which is the source, life, death, and the Id, which is will and begets power and transformation. So it's constantly in this motion between these three parts. Valerna is the continent. Oops. Don't know what happened there. So let's try that again. So Valerna is the continent. Doesn't want to go to of the world. And it's where the story begins, and a lot of it's you'll see all this map, this amazing map on the game board as well, and it's a unique, original world, and that's what I really appreciate. Some plays on the classic tropes of fantasy as well, which is really quite cool. So a lot of the other areas are like Alaria, which is one of the factions of the generals in the game. It's the Dragon Kingdom, the Jewel of the Westlands, land of astral alliance between elves and humans. So we still got elves, still got humans, still got lots of other things, wizards and everything else. So you'll recognise some things, but some fantastic designs like this dragon steed, for example, for the knight, and they're kind of like the high elves of the Warhammer world, it seems. And it looks like it's the most populous of the lots of different types of people as well. So it's very inclusive. You got half elves, silver elves, golden gnomes, traders, inventors, warriors, and explorers, which are these kind of centaurs, these Bucentauri, and the Fel, the dream elves, lurk in the depths of the Feywoods. So you know, you're kind of getting those classic tropes, but just a little bit of a twist on it, which is quite cool. Then you got this kind of Mayan civilization, this Nahok, which is the free states, the free people, all just around the world. And then you've got these kind of like more creatures that are in there, as it were. So shapeshifters, which is pretty cool. Who can take shape of beasts. So birds, lizards, and look, these are all miniatures, by the way. So they've already got this world. So think about expansions for this board game. It's pretty cool. Tiveria, which is kind of like vampiric, I guess. It's prosperity in excess, you could say, the Western world, measured in blood. So think about those. They use blood as a they need it to survive. People willingly give it up. So we've got gladiators. Definitely think about vampires and similar kind of things with that. Zarvor could not be pronounced like that. Holy land of dirt, dung, and timber. So this is the Earth community, as it were. You get little vibes of the Airbender a little bit, except for not using kind of elements to shape and stuff like that. But warmth, the hearth, and it was imagine tree. This looks like a griffin. Some pretty cool stuff there. And again, miniatures. Okay, so this is all being kind of done. It's part of, and I'll show you this, as part of a kind of war game that they're expanding to do. And then, of course, you've got the dragons, which is cool. So they're kind of like the peoples. And then every 27 years, dragons come to Valerina, which is the continent we're talking about. Exiled to Draka, the Red Moon, the dawn of history, dragons need to raid the world for its valor resources. So you can see where the RPG side of it's going to come in. Okay, this really rich world they've created, and and I really appreciate that as part of a board game. So we've got kind of like your classic dragons, okay, like the full game, which you can play in the game, I think. Then you've got Cortal, which has got like feathered. I love this design, because if you think about dragons, you think about dinosaurs, and when you think about dinosaurs, you think about birds. So I really like that they've tapped into that kind of aspect. Really cool design. Can't get that, I don't think, on the one. Now, these are the Hunters of the Red Moon. You can see it's kind of like in the sand, as it were, which is pretty cool. The Deadly Sort of Desert of Draka. Stalkers, Illyria. And these are smiths and crafters. So, dragons aren't just beasts that fly around and burn everything. If you think about D&D, and you think about a lot of old ideas like that, even Smorg, from The Hobbit, they got more about them. They're either talkers, they're smiths, and they create things. They could be artists, which they've got in this game as well. Really cool. So these are kind of smiths. Magnifix is the artistic side, the creative dragon, as it was. You can play Magnifix in the game, which is cool. Nyx, the undead. So you've got undead dragons in there as well. Very cool. And this was the Vile Breaker. There we go. Oops. And the Blood one, Basterix of the Red Rune. Really cool. And then you got Dragon Bonding, where this is where it's all kind of the key with this RPG, this world, and everything else. Perhaps at random, willing or not, a mortal and a dragon will join their valor. Remember, valor is the essence, if you like, and become one. Separate in body and mind, yet joined at their core essence. A bonded dragon gains an endless supply of valor. So that's why a dragon wants to be bonded, because they get this endless supply of valor. And a bonded mortal gains a dragon's extended lifespan, which, of course, for mortals is probably the biggest thing. Both their powers are increased, so they become more powerful. I love this by this Dragon Rider. I hope they bring out stuff like this. This is so cool. So that's really cool. That's what it's all about. Frolon and the Queen. So that talks about you play this in the board game, okay, which is cool. So that's one of the people. You play him. So these are the two generals, Nagasha. But then you got this Tetzorkul, the Huntress. So these are the different lands and the different kind of leaders. Zor, or the Night. Remember the Earth Clan, as it were. And then you got this thing. Beyond the Val, beyond magic is the Null. Null is nothing. It's the absence of drive or magic of being. Once a group of dragon bonded unwillingly release the Null to the world, they must cast it out. Sounds very familiar to my brother's game in terms of Inspirals, but which is quite a trope, as it were. So this is quite cool. So this is Dragonbond Battles of Valerna. Okay, it's a fully modular war game. You can build your army as you wish, as unique captains and individual abilities. As Dragon Bonded, a team of dragons and mortals and generals. Okay, now this is what they're hoping and what they're planning, if they can get to the money, to turn the free expansion that you get with the core pledge. Remember, $49. With that core pledge, you will get that. You're going to get this with the miniatures, but they want to convert it to a starter set of Battles of Valerna. So you're going to get 2 games in one. So you'll get this war game, this modular war game, which, to be honest, sounds amazing. It depends. I haven't seen any of the mechanics. I don't have a clue how it works, but I love the idea that you've got these dragons. You can pit these dragons and these dragon bonded with their kind of units against each other. Now, a massive part of that will be how good is the mechanics for that. That's another thing. They've also got an upcoming RPG box set using the 5th edition rules, and hence why you got 5th edition miniatures in the campaign. 3 books, rules, settings, and monsters. The Great Worms of Draka. So this is the idea of this. Every once in 27 years, all the dragons come into Valera. So I presume it's linked to those. 7 campaigns in one, 7 epic adventures, 7 dragons. So it looks as though you're kind of doing, as players, you're working towards maybe not defeating these dragons. You got to remember they're an intelligent species, so God knows what you do. So that's cool. So that's coming soon, which is awesome. So you kind of know that in this world there's going to be more stuff coming into it. And this is the one that is Kickstarter at the moment. The Dragonbond is a self-contained board game with that, hopefully, that expansion to go on. But also, they're also making a graphic novel and a TV series in the works. So this is pretty crazy. I think it's a cool world they've created that uses these dragons and everything else. And I know I've just ranted on about the world, not about the board game, but I think it's important to know that it has this rich world steeped inside of it. So this is cool. You know what I mean? It's unique. It's got some nice flavors, some differences. And I love the fact they're using these... I mean, who doesn't love dragons? They're using the dragons as an integral part of the world as well, which is so cool. So cool. So you choose your allegiance, obviously. So this is Feleron. So this is one of the players. This is Elise, who's one of the generals. You've also got Nagasha, who's a Magnifex dragon. Really nice sculpts as well, considering you're getting these. And then you get the Adriel, who's all about the blood. Sizes of them, decent size, about 64 millimeters. The Ferellian ones, because it's got wings out, is looking at quite a bit bigger, 110 millimeters. There are loads of videos, by the way, on the Kickstarter page. You can see how to play and playthroughs. Definitely worth looking at. Tells you how you do it. You basically choose one of your cards. As I said, if there's less than 4 players, then you're going to use AI bots. Always for those characters in the game or it doesn't work. And then it uses this programming deck is the best part of the game. I love this idea. It's a programming, but with a slight change. So you get this random event card. Now, why that's so important is because it places the power on the board. Now, power is like Vala. It's what the dragons are seeking. It's what the generals are seeking too. They go about it in very different ways, hence the asymmetric idea of the game. So the dragons, as you imagine, are going around either destroying units or collecting this Vala, this power, probably getting dragon bonded along the way, flying around, using these cards as well. You've also got these Varia cards that you can use as well, which is really cool. You cast these cards. The generals are trying to get their units, which are these little tokens you can see on the board, these swords, arrows, and hooves. They're trying to get those on the board to, like an area control, because these power tokens, this Vala, can come up anywhere. And you want to spread yourself out, so when you do collect it, which is one of the actions on the cards, these cards that you start to put on the deck, these have little glyphs. And these glyphs can attack, can cast, can move, and can collect effectively. Okay, but you can also bond as well. So they've got these different little symbols on the bottoms of the cards, as you can see as we're playing these. They do different things for different factions, slightly different for each general, but very different to the dragons, of course. And then you do those things, and your generals are trying to spread across area control, try to pick up those powers, but you don't get many of the chances to pick up power. I think as generals, you get 1 card in your deck. And you keep placing cards face down onto this deck, player by player, in player order turn, until someone passes. And then that's it. And then you stop, you put another story card on top, and then that is your deck for the round. So your rounds could be really long, or they could potentially be really short. They could even be for 1 turn each, if a player decides to. They might put themselves at a disadvantage there, but yeah, they still could be. You attack with dice. It's got a really cool mechanic with crits and hits on the dice. So it's misses, crits, and hits. The crits mean that you cannot flee. You would get destroyed immediately as the defender. But if the hits come in, you make a choice. You can either take the hits, and then you're going to do a counter attack before you resolve the hits, or you flee. And you can just retreat without losing any of your units. Now, you lose the area and that region, which you might need to try and get the power, but it's a really nice mechanic. I really like that. Then you can Dragon Bond. So basically, the rules for Dragon Bonding: if a general and a dragon end a turn in the same region, then you each roll a dice. If you get a hit or crit each, you Dragon Bond for the rest of the game. It's unbreakable, and therefore you're going to win or lose together. You can't get a solo win. Now, I think this needs to be explained before you play any games, because a lot of people quite like to win as the outright winner, okay, rather than win as a team. If you quite like winning as a team, this is a fantastic mechanic, because you're going to go and seek those. Now, you don't have a choice, okay? You don't have a choice about whether to accept the bond or not. The only way you can do it is if you've got any power. So if you've harvested any power and you've got any to spend, voila, you can effectively exhaust that and then re-roll the dice to try and stop that from happening. So there is a little bit of mitigation, but most of the time it happens straight away. Once they're bonded, they get special powers because they're strong, which are really quite powerful. And then instead of trying to get 10 power to win the game, you get a collective 15 power and you both win the game. Okay. Now, what's quite cool about this Dragon Bonding mechanic is that it kind of forces the other two players to kind of bond together, unless they're really flying ahead, in which case they might want to try and get the win on their own. There is a little bit of a problem with that if you've got a general and a dragon player who are miles ahead of everyone else, of the other two, and they bond together, then it can basically turn into a whitewash and make it impossible for the lower ones to. But that completely depends on the game group and how it takes about form that. Okay. Quick start. This is what you want to click on. Play on Tabletopia. You can click on that with a completely free. You can have a completely free Tabletopia account. It's done on a browser, so you don't have to download anything, and you can just have a go at Lords of Valor on there, which is going to be really quite cool. There's also an unofficial mod on Tabletop Simulator, which is cool as well. But a really good chance to just try it. So what's in the box? Obviously you've got the 4 characters, the 2 dragons, 2 generals, all their bits and pieces that they need. You've got this lovely, beautiful map. I really like the map. It's in terms of cartography, it's beautiful. Space for your story. You've got what your area control does. So really nice, really quite simple, easy to understand. Really nice map. Only problem, 5 dice. This is a bit of an issue because there's very likely, as a general, you might be trying to throw 12 dice in an attack. It's very, very likely. In which case, you kind of got to roll all 5, keep the results, all 5, keep those results, roll 2, keep those results. I would have liked to see more dice attached to the board game. I mean, yeah, the price point, I understand that. And actually, as an add-on, you can buy extra dice. But just with the dragons, it's going to be fine. I think the maximum you ever roll, really, with the dragons is maybe 5 with the card, but it's 4 most of the time. It's when you've got those generals. Those generals are going to really attack hard if you've built up a good army. Then you've got the area control cards, of course. So really quite cool, which is really, really nice. It's $49 for that. But included for free, and this is where you get your buck for your money, is basically all the miniatures to replace these unit tokens. So rather than using unit tokens, you use loads of miniatures, and they look really nice. Plus the stretch goal. So they've done it in stages. So these are new cards, upgrade cards. So basically, as a general, one of the actions you can do by controlling areas is you can upgrade if that upgraded unit is part of that area you control. And this is where you get these kind of like awesome cards that are very linked to each of the regions that I went through in the lore. You also get all the units, which is really cool, which could be used for the war game, remember. You get the Aladan Alan, so you get such a cool miniature. You get some more generals, no more dragons, but you get 2 more generals, which is, to be fair, is really quite cool. So you can mix and match those. They'll be unique. They got unique cards. These special cards, those Varia cards, I think they're called, which are kind of like one-time use. You got to use your power to use it, which is quite cool. So yeah, when you collect that Valor, that power around the board. Okay, so when you collect this Valor power, this harvest action, it comes on unexhausted, and then you use your cards, your value cards, to effectively exhaust these power tokens or to do this action, and then you can do special abilities, or you can play those cards or collect those cards. So it's a really strong action. I would have liked to see a way to refresh those power cores. I think that would have been quite cool. So maybe instead of when you take that action, instead of, you get a choice. You either play one of these cards or you draw a new one into your hand. It would have been quite cool to have the third option of refreshing one power core. That would have been quite cool. So yeah, you get all of that. Then they've got like social stretch goals as well, which is quite cool. And all that stuff. So $49, insane. It gets you all of that. I think as well you get an art book. I might have just made that up. I think I have just made that up, haven't I? I thought you got a law book, sorry, but I cannot see that. So you've got different tiers, as they would do in everything, which is cool. And then they're doing these huge, massive 8-inch, 20 centimeter dragons that you can just paint up. So that's cool. Here's the adventure book. Oh, so you can. Oh, so they're already doing the. That's cool. But I presume they're doing this RPG book later in another time. Cool. So the add-ons, this is another awesome thing. So again, this is included for free, which is cool. I mean, look at these miniatures. They're so cool in design. Remember, this is the Blood clan. Then the Tyverian, because it's a Tyverian general in the base game, basically. Tyverian soldiers, and then the Tyverian ranged units, these alchemists. Then you've got the Illyrian cavalry units. These are so cool. The Illyrian sword units, I suppose you can call them. And then their range units, these gnomes, which is so cool. Oh, there it is. That's where it was. Lore book. So you get a lore book free as well. Insane value. Absolute insanity. And then if you want to expand that to... Is this the... Yes. If you want to expand this to 5 and 6 players, really cool. Fell Knight. I mean, a Fell Knight miniature as a general. That, to be fair, that's cool. And you get all their actions. Then you get a dragon, which is this Kadal, which is kind of like a monster rather than a dragon. And then you get the Onata Pei miniature, which is another one, another general. Sagrav miniature, I'm not really sure what that even for. This might actually be part of this, so it looks like they're mixing it up with the Valar cards, perhaps. More tokens, more wounds, Doom token, Alliance token, so cool. And then duplicate player options. So I think what you could probably do if you get this expansion is potentially play just generals versus no dragons. Why would you want to do that? I don't know. Creatures of Valerna, which can be used in the D&D universe, or their role-playing universe, of course, is monsters. It's quite cool. I do quite like the idea of this. It's just the cost when you consider this is $1 more than the base game and all that rest of it. You know, this is more at what we'd expect in terms of price point from a Kickstarter, to be fair. But they spawn the Born and a new way of collecting power and defeating them. Seems quite like, what am I trying to think of? That Awaken Realms game. Oh, God. With the Greek mythology in kind of like a space form. Oh, forgotten. But you're trying to seek these monsters, defeat them, and to gain that power that way. Okay. They've got each got unique ability. What a beautiful miniature! This Hydra, you know, kind of Chinese dragon-esque with the Hydra. And you got this loathsome Wada, which is cool. You got an Oni, so like a dragon type Oni, very cool. A Manticore, kind of classic enemy, and then a Huskling, which is quite cool, and a Fey Goblin, So some cool stuff there. I mean, look at these things. 10 centimeters tall. They're going to be insane. Okay, and obviously you get a round base, but you know you'd expect that. So they come in different size bases, as you'd imagine. So to get 5 dice, $10. I think that's going to be needed. I think they got their own unique sleeves, if you want. That's cool. They got some D&D dice, some pretty cool D&D dice that you can use, or RPG dice, I should say. But look, this I didn't understand. It cannot be right. $10 for an oversized color neoprene mat. Is that right? It's beautiful. That is a no-brainer. Now, obviously, this is the add-on's gonna be used in the Pledge Manager, but I mean that's so cool. Now, if you want the massive miniatures to paint up the 20 centimeter, 24 centimeter dragon, it's $55. But these things are monstrously large. Very, very cool. So $55 for each of those. I love this one. This would probably be the one I would go for if I was going to go for it. And then the hardcover RPG adventure book, $60. So you can actually get it now. I think it says coming soon, so I think they might be doing this as an additional Kickstarter, maybe. But this could be very, very cool. So 7 tier 4 adventures, so they're not, they're quite hardcore. But it sounds awesome. And of course you could use these oversized miniatures for really taking it home. So this tells you what's involved in it. It does, it's got reviews. I'm not sure if reviews is the right word. Sure, these are previews because it's still in prototype form. They're still going to maybe change it up quite a lot. But yeah, it's, a lot of people liking the asymmetric side of it. They quite like the idea of just dragon bonding and becoming this team. Although that can be a bit of hit and miss, of course. So plenty of videos to watch if you want to go. It's cool. They've got their own hubs, which they're going to, in a lot of continents or countries, which is really nice. UK being one of them. So no custom charges. However, please note that for all Europe, including the UK, we handle VAT upon importing goods. VAT is charged in the Pledge Manager. So the pledge value does not include VAT, which is, to be fair, at least they're saying that. There was a bit of up and R about, certain companies not really being explicit about that. But just be aware of that with Kickstarting, that if you're in certain countries, you might need to pay VAT. So in the UK, it's 20%, for example. So whatever your order is, you're going to have to pay 20% on top of that. With the staying with base game shipping, just staying with the UK, for example, where I am, $20 shipping, pretty standard. That's pretty decent value. If you wanted to get the full whack, that's $34, or any extras is an extra $7 on top. So yeah, that mat's only $10, but you're going to have to chuck on a $7 postage fee on top of that. It's still very, very good for $17. Don't get me wrong. So, $49 for the pledge just makes it so tempting and such good value. Absolute phenomenal. They obviously do pledge managers, so you can put add-ons or change it up or whatever it might be, and then move it. But this is really cool. This is what I wanted to show you. They seem really good in terms of being transparent and communication and stuff. In fact, I'm even playing with one of the team from Draco Studios tonight, a game of Dragonbond, so on Tabletopia, so that's going to be cool. So these are our past and current titles. So Laws of Valor, which is what they're planning on doing, fulfillment in June next year, which is cool. By the way, the pledge manager, this is really cool. I think I wish companies would do a pledge managers for this distance all the time, up till March next year. You can put, if you wanted to, and you're not quite sure about this game, you can put $1 in. You can pledge, get onto the Kickstarter, and then you can wait until March, or just get the base pledge, and then just wait all the way till March, and then up it or change it when you maybe get some money. Great Worms of Draco, which are these huge books. So that's fulfilled in December, which is pretty cool. Which is stuff they've done before. Okay, Battles of Valernia, which they've fulfilled before, but obviously they're hoping to expand that and get people into it using this board. And they got some other stuff going on as well, loads in fact. So yeah, that's Dragonbond. I highly recommend giving Tabletopia a go. And just having a little look at the lore, see if it's something that interests you. It definitely sparked my interest. The idea to have those dragons and this asymmetric board game that's tied into a D&D. Sorry, I keep saying D&D. It's not D&D. Into this unique fantasy universe. I think that's really quite cool with all the lore. Now that's quite like what I'm doing at the moment. I'm also designing a board game that is based on an already existing fantasy role-playing world, Inspirals, which my brother created and has just released. So it really helps as a designer to have the world before you move into that board game, and I think that's a really nice way to go around it. If you've got an RPG and then you do a board game based on that RPG, I think that's the best way it works around, okay, rather than the other way around, because you're going to have to think about all the lore and world and everything else. Now, not to say that, some RPGs that come from board games aren't going to be good. That's not true. It's just, I think that's the best way of doing it, and that's what Draco Studios have done here with Dragonbond. Having that world, that fleshed out world, and then thinking, right, how can we put that into a board game? And it is a true board game. It's not a narrative board game. It's a true board game, is what I would call it. So you're like, yeah, you've got event cards, but they're not steeped in loads of lore and all that stuff. You're not kind of going through chapter, choose your own adventure or anything like that. That's not involved in this game. And to be honest, it's a little bit quite similar to the game I'm designing as well, in the sense that my plan is not to have choose your own adventure. It's not that style of game. It's more of a board game. Yeah, you're going to have some flavor text in there, of course, and get some idea of the world through that board game. I think that's really important as well, but quite a different idea. So yeah, for the value of this, and I think that's the number one positive with this Kickstarter, it's an insane value product, and it's a good. I've played it a few times on my own, just solo, and it works really well. I do have some questions about the AI. I'm not 100% sure. The AI works fine. It has done in the past, but when you get to a point, and this can happen, it's happened twice in the two games I did it, is that the power disappears off the board. Everyone's collected power, and then I had the next round, no power, because the event cards not necessarily bring power onto the board. Most of the time they do, but not all the time. There was no power on the board, so all of the AI's kind of engine mechanic and what they do always talks about going to the region with the most power and then doing this or doing this. If there's no power on the board, there is no region. So do they not move? Do you decide where they move? It was quite ambiguous to how the AI works. So that's the only thing I hope they kind of just tighten up a little bit and just make sure. I mean, it's early days. That's the beauty of Kickstarters, is you can, especially put it on like Tabletopia, you can get people to play test it, and then they can kind of give you some ideas, and hopefully they will develop the game a little bit further. Now it's hopefully in the hands of the board game developers. So really cool. Plenty more to span out from that, especially, I mean, it's a bit off yet. They want it to get, I think it was, what was it? $200,000. So on 100, it's on 152,000 at the moment. But at $200,000, it turns into this war game starter. So you're basically going to get another different game that you can use all your miniatures on. I hope, fingers crossed, we get that happening, but we'll have to wait and see. We'll see. It's 6 days left. Cool. So that was Dragonbond, Lords of Valor. I really like it. I think having these dragons in there, and with the premise of these extra, like this role-playing game, the expansion to have this war game starter pack. They've already got the war game out, but to get the starter pack would be even better. I think it's really, really strong, and just the pure value of this game is awesome. Okay, so Dragonbond Lords of Valor on Kickstarter for 6 days more. So if it's something that maybe tickles your fancy, it was definitely worth a look. Okay guys, thanks for watching.